We're good.
Hello, welcome to Little Steps Live. I am Leah from Little Steps, and today we are chatting with a sleep expert who is going to share some fabulous tips with us on how to get our kids to sleep. Before we get started though, just a few quick reminders. Firstly, we are live twice a month to keep you in the know and on the go. If you want to be reminded of any of our live sessions, you can check out our Facebook events page and just click interested on anything that you fancy, and then reminders will get sent directly to your phone. You can sign up for our weekly newsletters across all of our cities, from Hong Kong to Singapore to KL. The link is in the description. And finally, please feel free to ask us questions or leave us comments and interact with us while we have our special guest with us. Okay, let's get started.
Thank you for having me, Leah.
Welcome, Emmy. Okay, so today we are talking all about sleep. So are you having trouble getting your baby or toddler or kid to sleep? Because if you are not alone. Today we are discussing a topic that affects virtually every parent at some point or the other. It's definitely affected me. And even we have problems as adults falling asleep sometimes. So when our children who are young and can't regulate their emotions and talk about their feelings yet, when they struggle with sleep, it can be a really tricky issue to deal with. So that's why we have teamed up with this sleep expert today who's going to answer all of our burning questions about kids' sleep. Okay, so Little Steps is very happy to welcome Emmy Clendenny today. She is a certified and experienced sleep consultant who has been helping families all over Hong Kong get their kids to sleep. Emmy's background is in marketing and writing, and it wasn't until after the birth of her two sons, who are less than a year apart.
Yep, about a year apart. Yep, just a year apart.
That she found her passion for sleep and helping families get that much coveted sleep for life. So welcome, Emmy. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I've been in Hong Kong for about 9 years. I met my husband here, and we got a dog, had 2 children, did the whole sleep deprivation thing, and I basically got the book 12 Hours by 12 Weeks and got obsessed with it. I had the goal in mind of having a 3-month-old sleeping through the night, and I did it, and it was very exciting. So yeah, I went from marketing, sales, and writing into the
full-time mom
to sleep career. I have always loved sleep. I know a lot of people do, but I grew up always being a pretty good sleeper.
Right.
Luckily, my husband's a pretty good sleeper as well. So our firstborn, I don't know if he followed in our tracks, if the sleep training helped from this book.
But he slept from 3 months.
It's
amazing.
So basically it worked. Like what I tried the first time around worked for him, and then we had our second a year later, and I did the same thing with him, and it didn't work. So I tried a few different methods, just played around and tweaked a few things here and there. Finally got him sleeping through around 6 or 7 months, which to a lot doesn't seem that late, but you know when you're in it and when you're sleep deprived and you're waiting since month 2, month 3, and it's that many months later and you've tried, and it's
frustrating.
It's too long. Yeah, it's too long. Yeah. So I had a fun time, which sounds weird, figuring out the puzzle pieces, and then started to help friends, and then found this certification program, and ever since have been helping families as my living. So it's
amazing.
Yeah. It's really amazing and fulfilling, and everyone needs sleep. So
so true. I'm about to enter that phase, and I'm a little bit scared because I have forgotten what it's like to not sleep.
Of course.
But, yes, well, I've got your details now, so we'll be in touch.
Yep.
Today we are going to split our chat up into 3 key areas of focus. We're going to be talking about tips for newborns, then tips for toddlers, and finally just common sleep issues and how to tackle them. So let's jump into our first topic, which is tips for newborns. So I'm going to listen very well here. Okay, so every baby is different, but most infants between birth and 3 months should get about how many hours of sleep, including naps?
So 16 hours is some less, some more. Everyone, again, every baby is different. By 3 months old, 16 hours is kind of the average amount of sleep for every 24 hours. The beauty of the newborn stage is you should relax and go with the flow as much as you can, and don't worry too much about creating a schedule. The best thing you can do to set yourself up for healthy sleep habits is to create a bedtime routine. Even if they're 2 months old, and they're up a few times a night, that last that's between 7 and 9 o'clock even. If they're going down at that time, you can still start a routine.
So what sort of things would you do to start a routine at that age?
So at that age, I would do the same thing that you're going to be doing throughout their lives, and that's you can start singing, of course, a song,
Okay.
A couple of books, and I remember thinking, opening up a book with my 3-month-old and thinking, is this a waste of time? Like,
Right,
what, is
it's
this
ridiculous,
silly?
he doesn't understand,
But
yeah.
it's about your voice and your soothing. It's all their senses are being used and they're being
Right.
developed, and it's more about the routine and the rhythm and hearing your voice and maybe hearing the same story or hearing the same song. It cues that it's bedtime or it's nap time.
Right.
So you can do that as early on as you want, really. I mean, 2 months, 3 months, when their naps start to regulate, is a good time for that. You can do that right after baths, and then you change them. You put on their pajamas. You could read them another story, but pick something that works for you, and then stick with it as consistently as you can.
Great. Okay, so start introducing like the sleep cues from 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay. And at how many months should the naps and night feeding stop? What would you recommend?
So that's a 2-part question. So
Yes.
so the naps, children can nap up until 4, even later. Some drop the naps earlier. I highly recommend, if you can get them napping until 4 years old, absolutely.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, they need it. I mean, their bodies still need it.
Yeah.
It can get hard because, especially in Hong Kong, because we have
Schools
activities
and-
and school and times. But if they do drop their naps before 4, it's really important to at least set aside a time for them to kind of like downtime, like even meditation. And for children, meditation is different. Being in a quiet space, not too stimulating, but if they have some of their favorite toys around, but they're in a quiet room on their own without mom and dad, that's a really good thing to do, to set a time that side as if they were napping at that time.
Okay.
If they're a little bit older and they've dropped their naps.
So maybe
to do
like
that.
an hour? Would an hour be enough?
That's
Or-
great. Half hour is fine too.
Okay.
Everyone is different, so just see what they can handle. Maybe start off with just 15 minutes, and then the next day 20, 30, and so on. Now the naps, there's nap transitions as well. So around 3 months is when their naps regulate. So they'll be doing 3 naps a day. They should be doing 3 naps a day until like 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And then usually between that time they'll drop down to 2, and then they drop down to 1 nap at about 15 months is the average age. But of course, some are earlier and some are later.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah.
So much to remember.
And
yeah.
then the feeding.
And
the night-
yes. So at what age should the night feeding stop?
So this is a very personal thing to
Yeah.
people. So personally, the way I did it, I after reading that book, 12 Hours by 12 Weeks, knowing that they're healthy and okay to stop their feedings by 12 weeks, and of course checked with the doctor first, make sure they're a healthy weight, then they don't need feeds after 12 weeks. Some are even as early as 10 weeks if
Okay.
they're a healthy weight.
Right.
And of course, you always have to want to check with your doctor.
Yeah.
Some people, and that's whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, or formula, I'm sorry. Some people want to do a feed until even a year, and it's not necessary. It's okay if that's what you want to do, but it's not necessary, and it might just be something extra that you're doing for yourself, which is okay. It can be bonding, but some kids do need it later, longer. It just really depends on your baby, but if they're a healthy weight, 12 weeks, they can start sleeping through the night with no feeds.
That's great. I think I was a little bit lazy when my kids were younger, so I would feed them just to get them straight back to sleep again.
And you're exhausted.
Yeah,
and that's exactly why a lot of people do feed much longer.
Right.
But knowing, after reading about this for myself, knowing that this was okay and accepted and doctor approved, depending on the baby, I think that also might have that was when I got hooked on the whole sleep thing. Like, wait a minute. I can be a normal human at 3 months, possibly.
Amazing.
But yeah.
Okay. And when would a good time? Oh, we already spoke about this, I guess. When is a good time to introduce the bedtime routine? You said from about 2 months. So
yeah.
Never too early.
It's never too early. Yep. It's a nice routine for your whole family.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last question, when should a baby sleep through the night? So you mentioned from as early as 12 weeks they are capable of sleeping through the night?
Yeah. Some are even earlier, some are later. There's so many things go into it, and their health issues, and if they're premature, of course, if they're premature, it wouldn't be 12 weeks. It would be later. So again, I always say check with your doctor about your specific situation. Yeah. But yeah, they can as early as 12 weeks, which is pretty great.
Yeah. Okay, just a reminder, you are watching Little Steps Live. We are with our sleep expert, Emmy, and we are talking all about how to get our kids to sleep at night. We've just spoken about how to get newborns to sleep. Now we're going to move on to toddler sleep. So, firstly, what kind of sleep aids tend to be helpful for getting toddlers to sleep?
So sleep aids are, if you haven't introduced a sleep aid and they're toddlers, then you probably wouldn't be later.
Okay. So what about for infants?
Infants, we don't recommend, just for safety, we don't recommend you having anything in the crib. Okay. So it's really important that you make sure, and it's a shame because these gorgeous companies sell these gorgeous products and make it look like you need it, but you really don't need it, and it's not, sometimes you might look at your baby's crib and say, oh my gosh, it's so bare, that they must not like that. They don't care. They don't care. It's really us. It's for our visual. So I would stay away, especially in the first year, stay away from the
little cuddlies,
the frilly things. Right. Yeah. Of course, like a small compact item, if it's something that they're already sleeping with and they're 6 months, say, and they're used to it. Yeah. I'm not saying like rip it out of their bed now, but just for future, if you are preparing and nesting, then it's a good idea to just keep in mind to just keep it all clear. Even mobiles above their bed, they're pretty and they make nice music, but they're pretty unnecessary and they can fall and they don't need it. Okay. But a sleep aid for babies and into toddlerhood is pacifiers.
Or dummies, as we say, like in Australia or the UK. Yeah.
I have nothing against them. I think they're great. One of my little guys did not like it. The other one loved it. And we had it wasn't even that hard to take it away from him. I would just say, I don't think there's anything wrong if that helps the baby.
Nothing wrong with putting your baby to sleep or your toddler.
Absolutely. Okay. Because the pacifier is not a crutch. Yeah. The crutch is us rocking them to sleep. Right. Or us rubbing their back until they fall asleep. They then will wake up in the middle of the night perhaps, or super early wake up at 5 a.m. and be looking for you because that's the last thing they had. Which makes sense. Right. They want what they had before.
What if they drop the pacifier or it falls out of their mouth at night?
That's a fun one. Right. So, so that's a risk that you have to be willing to take if you have the pacifier involved. We had about 4 pacifiers in our little guy's crib.
Oh, that's clever.
When he could grab, when he was able to grab. Right. But, there's a stage, I feel like there's like a 2-month stage. If you are...
Especially if they're still swaddled or in their like little sleep sacks. Yeah.
So the best thing to do is when it does fall out, instead of going back and forth about 30 times in the night, it depends on what you're comfortable with, but if you can let them self-soothe without the pacifier for a little bit, even if it's for 5 minutes at a time, then go and check on them and give them the pacifier, that's better than just constantly going back and putting
Right.
it in, because that's what they're going to expect.
Yeah, and then it's
And
exhausting.
you're gonna, yeah, and 5 minutes of crying or whimpering,
Yeah.
that's not, that's actually the way to teach them to self-soothe, because that's their way of communicating. So it's not like, you're not cruel, it's not cried out fully, it's literally, it's a nice opportunity. It sounds weird, but it's an opportunity for you to give them that, okay, pacifier's out, next best thing is I gotta chill, I gotta do this on my own.
Okay.
So it's okay to do that, but it's very tempting to keep running back and
Right.
and putting the pacifier in.
I think especially if you've got older kids sharing a room.
Yeah,
or,
exactly. So in that case, I would also say, like, explain it to your older one if
Yes.
they are sharing a room.
Right.
Explain what's happening, and for 3 nights in a row, 3 to 5 nights in a row, I would say this is going to be happening.
Yeah.
We're going to let him find his way for a few nights. You're such a big boy. You're such a big girl. If you could, if it's too much for you, then we'll find another spot for you to sleep in. But just so you know, this might happen, just so they're ready for it.
Yeah,
And they
okay.
usually get used to their sibling sounds way quicker than we think they will. So don't tiptoe around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And just say your toddler is not sleeping through the night yet. How can you encourage your toddler to start falling asleep on their own?
So it goes back to what we were just saying. So if they have been relying on rocking,
Rocking or- yeah.
or maybe you literally read them however many books it took for them to fall asleep. So what?
Or nursing to
Or
sleep, which I was
nursing.
guilty of.
Yeah. So what you want to do there is, whatever the behavior is, you want to cut it short and make sure you're cutting it short so they are still awake. They are not. They're not asleep, or I always say drowsy but awake.
Okay.
So they're pretty tired and they're ready to fall asleep, but they're not
Asleep,
there
asleep.
at all. Yeah. And that might, and if they're toddlers or they're on the older side, you can talk to them. Like we don't have these conversations with our little ones as early as we should.
Right.
Yeah, because even though they're not talking to us the way we're talking to our friend or our spouse, doesn't mean they're not getting it. So I find that when I work with families that have toddlers or little ones from all the way up to 6 years old, talk to them as if they're a respected individual of the family, because they are. Make them feel that way. Explain why we want to go to sleep. So everything from, and set a family meeting, like a fun family meeting about sleep. So everything from, if we do go to sleep, then our bodies are going to grow taller. Tomorrow on the soccer field, you're going to kick further. Football.
Right.
Or
Very
you're gonna jump
multinational
higher.
here in
Yeah,
Hong Kong, yes.
exactly. Explain it to them why it's physically important,
Okay.
because they can at least grasp that. And then for some families like to do more visual things and create sticker charts. And
Right, I was
toddlers
going to
get
ask,
that.
actually, would you recommend like bribes or sticker reward charts, or what are your views on that?
I don't think bribing is the answer.
Okay.
I don't want to be a hypocrite, because I absolutely have bribed.
Right.
But if you can steer clear of it, do,
Okay.
until if it's the last resort.
Right.
That's fine. But again, a lot of kids respond differently to these things. So I find if they're kind of an artistic little guy or little girl, and they respond to hands-on stuff. Get out a couple things before the family meeting and just have it out. Like even just a big piece of paper, stickers, some markers. Let them get involved in the actual
Like
chart.
making the charts.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fun parts.
Right.
And, well, look, if you get this many stickers, then, and this
It might
goes
be a
for,
little reward.
Yeah. And this is a great thing to do for potty training too. Get
Right.
them involved.
Yeah.
Let them reward themselves. And stickers are harmless,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, steer clear of any rewards at all, but I have 2 boys. I need rewards.
Yeah. I hear you. I also have 2 boys, so yeah.
oh my gosh.
Same page. Okay. And now, can you give us some tips on how to transition your toddler into a toddler bed from a crib?
Yes. So it's actually very similar to what we were just talking about. You want to talk to them. You want to involve them in the discussion. You also want to make sure it's not too early. So I would say, especially living in a city like Hong Kong, but I think I would do this if I was in the burbs somewhere. I recommend to have them in cribs until 4 if you can.
Wow.
If you can.
If you can. Okay.
You don't want them jumping out like monkeys, of course,
Right.
and hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Mine did that, and then
They stayed in a crib until 4?
Well, they're still both in cribs.
Okay.
One will be 4 next week, and the other will be 3 in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, my
But
fingers.
they can climb in and out of the cribs now?
But they don't anymore.
They don't.
So they
Okay.
did it for a week, and I feel like I crib trained them. I think, I don't know, but basically every day, consistently, just like we do nap time and bedtime
Right.
routines, I would go in, take like 10 deep breaths before I went in, because I could hear them bouncing around.
Mm-hmm.
I would go in, and they were in sleep sacks, and I made sure it was safe. Like if they were jumping out, and the thing is, you got to remove everything out of the room that's not safe. Okay,
Yeah.
so if they're in that zone where you can tell they're going to, or they're at the age, or they've expressed interest in a big bed, remove all the stuff out of the bedroom, make it safe, and explain to them why the crib is so great. It's a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is time and the sleep sack's not working anymore, and it's time, and if they're 4 or almost 4, it's just have a conversation with them and talk to them about the safety, of course, and make sure that they know that nothing will change as far as them getting out of that bed until mom or dad comes in.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that everyone still is respecting the boundaries.
Yes.
And it's not, oh, well, just because you don't have a side on the crib does not mean it's a free-for-all.
Right. Okay.
Right?
So it's interesting to hear 4. Yeah.
I mean, if you can.
Yeah, if you
everyone's
can.
different.
Right.
And I have a
feel like-
monkey and an old man. My old man stays
Happy
in the crib.
to stay there.
And
Right.
he sometimes says, Mom, I don't want to get out when
Yeah.
I go in. The other one, I can hear him literally egging on the other one, saying,
so funny.
get out of your crib, get out of your crib, get out of your crib. Not today, boys.
No. So we have had a question come through from Aneka, and her question is, a 21-month-old falls asleep easily, but lately when she wakes at night, she will not settle. If they let her cry for 1 to 2 minutes, she throws up. Oh, that's a tough situation. Do you have any advice for her?
So it really depends. It's hard for me to say because I don't know the situation, but just hearing you say 21-month-old falls asleep easily, if that means she or he is falling asleep without mom or dad or nanny holding them or comforting them, then that's one thing. If they are falling asleep with the help of someone, then that's actually probably the root of the problem.
The reason, okay.
But if they are falling asleep on their own easily, and they do get up, she gets up.
She wakes up and then she will she won't settle. And
Okay.
Yeah, she'll start to vomit after 1 or 2 minutes.
So what you can do, and this method is called gradual extinction. It sounds way more horrible than it is.
Extinction sounds quite tough.
Sounds
oh my
horrible.
goodness.
But that's one of my favorite methods because it's increments, and it sounds like they let the baby cry for a couple of minutes. So maybe instead of letting her cry or him cry for a couple of minutes, go in initially to
Like
console.
straight away when the crying starts up.
Yeah, especially if that's the case.
Right.
So go in to console and then leave. If the
Once the child settles, or
yeah, but that's like a whole other method.
okay.
So the gradual extinction, it sounds like that's what they were doing. If she or he is vomiting, then first and foremost, I would say talk to your doctor if you already have not. And the other thing I would say is, check the foods. There's so many reasons why that could be happening. What kind of foods are they eating that day?
Right.
How was the nap that day? I hope the 21-month-old should be having at least a good solid nap a day. So
Right.
is that still happening? If not, bring the nap back.
And I think it's a good point that you raised to check like the diet. It could be something
Yeah.
that they're eating at bedtime. That,
Absolutely.
She's
They're-
not falling asleep. She's falling asleep on her own. She's not
Oh.
being held.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. So
Maybe
yeah,
diet?
so check the food. I would say, definitely speak to your doctor. You know, it could be like late onset of reflux. I don't know if maybe if your baby had reflux before, that could be. It's not too uncommon that that's happening, but you definitely want to just check to make sure it's nothing serious. That's what I would personally do. I would check with the doctor first, and then of course go through what was the baby eating that day and how close is the baby eating to bedtime.
Yeah.
You know, move the food up earlier. Also, is the baby getting milk before bed? Maybe take that out.
Okay.
Gradually take that out because they don't need it. After a year, I mean, I'm not a lactation consultant, but it's not needed. Milk is not needed after 12 months old. So maybe take that out because that could be creating something that's making them
Unsettling them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the doctor could help you figure that out. I'm sorry
Perfect.
you're having that issue.
Thank you, Emmy. Hopefully you find that useful. So lots of great advice there on tips for toddlers. And now we will jump into our last topic, which is common sleep issues and how to tackle them.
Right.
So you probably get asked these questions a ton. The first one that we're going to speak about is how can we deal with nightmares or recurring nightmares with older children?
Okay. So nightmares. Okay. So if it's just nightmares, you want to kids. I think it's around age from 2 on, really.
Yeah.
Some can start saying, "Oh, mom, I'm scared. I'm scared." That's what they start with. I'm scared.
Okay.
Maybe that meant they had a nightmare before, or they're seeing shadows or whatever. Check the room first and do it with your little one and say, you know, light, if it's in the middle of the night, don't turn on all the lights because you don't want a whole situation.
Rather they're awake.
But you can, you know, look around and make sure they know that they're safe.
Okay.
And say there's nothing, you know, there's nothing
No
here,
monsters
no
or
monsters.
nothing scary. Yeah.
And if they don't bring up monsters, don't say no monsters because
They don't need
that's
ideas.
us just adding
Right.
to So you know, reassure them that you're there, that you're close by, that you're, you know, down the hall or across the hall, and you read positive books before they go to bed. Every little one is different. So if they're the type that, you know, if they keep bringing it up and you want to seek out a book about nightmares and, you know, they want to know more, some kids and adults, they do better when they know more.
Okay.
Some just positive thoughts. Stay away from television and monitors before bed. I mean, no matter what, you should. It's like an hour before bedtime. But
So what about if the kids are older? Like, because I guess then you're not really going to be walking around the room. Like I'm talking about like 8 years old or 7 years old.
So you want to make sure that you know the difference if it's a nightmare or a night terror.
Actually, that is so fun. We have just had a question from Katrina asking what is the difference between nightmares and night terrors.
Okay.
So Katrina, listen
Perfect.
up.
So night terrors are basically they're in a state where they can't wake up. So you should not wake them up either. It's kind of a severe nightmare where they have to see it through. And they could be the first time you see it, you probably would wake them up because you're concerned,
afraid, right.
concerned, and they look like they're not doing well. But they are, once you see it, you'll know the difference between a nightmare, because a nightmare they can wake up out of it, and they can tell you, or they can they just don't. They seem a bit scared.
Okay.
A night terror, they are intensely going through this thought process and they should not be woken up from it. If this is the case,
How long do night terrors last?
they can last anywhere from 5 minutes to like 40 minutes.
Wow. So you would recommend letting them go like up to 14?
And then see the doctor talk to your doctor the next day if that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's because it's all about what happened that day or what's going on in their lives. If there's any big change, night terrors and nightmares occur when big changes are happening, and it's pretty interesting to think that a 2-year-old, whether 2 or 8, could be affected by even if it's just mom or dad having a little bit of a stressed out day at work. They are affected by it.
Right.
I'm not saying like everyone be stress free because that's impossible, but that's why communication within the household is so important because it affects everyone so deeply, all the way for some children into their nightmares,
into their sleep.
and they could get that this stuff could start happening. I will say night terrors are actually there are a lot of studies out there that are saying it's genetics.
Okay.
So if you are wondering if that's something, maybe ask around the family, if your spouse, the grandparents, aunts and uncles, see if they've had anything like that.
So you would recommend seeing like a counselor or a specialist?
I would see your pediatrician.
Okay.
Yeah, and talk to them, and then they could point you in the right direction.
Okay.
But for nightmares, once you have a night terror, you'll know that that's not a nightmare. It's pretty different, but
right.
yeah.
Do kids generally outgrow night terrors, or
Yeah,
they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
But not always. But
right.
that's very rare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But just going back to the nightmare thing, just make sure you guys, if you talk about it and you're open and you let them feel comfortable enough to talk to you about it, that helps immensely.
Okay.
And because you want them to always know that sleep is a safe, good place.
Right.
They don't want their bed. You
To
don't want their
become a
bed to
stressful
ever.
thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
We have had another question from Amanda. Her question is, my child wakes up twice a night, 2 times a week. That's specific. Any thoughts on how to make it 0 nights?
Well, it depends on how old. Does it say how old?
Does it? Amanda, do you want to let us know how old your child is? If you are watching still.
But it's very general, so it's really hard to say, but it usually starts with the bedtime. One of my go-to answers for that kind of a question is move that bedtime up earlier, even if it's already a 6:30 bedtime. You could try 5:30, and this could be hard with schedules and getting home and dinner, but if it's something where they're doing super, super early wake-ups or waking up a couple times randomly in the night and they were a good sleeper before, try the early bedtime, whether it's a half hour or an hour before your normal bedtime. The reason for that is everyone from little ones to adults have sleep windows. And those are basically when our biological clock will say, okay, it's time to go to bed. That's when the melatonin sets in, and that's our window to go to sleep. Now, what we do today in 2019 is we know it and we feel it, but we grab our phone one more time, and for a little one, it could be, and it's no one's fault. We just have to know the cues. They could be wanting to play for 10 extra minutes, and daddy came home later, or mom came home later, and that 10 extra minutes.
They miss their window, and then
they have a second wind.
Okay.
So that second wind is what makes it really hard for them to fall asleep, and then later in the night, easier for them to wake up because they're on a light sleep cycle.
Right.
So the sleep windows are pretty important.
Okay.
And for us, just to give you a reference, for adults, our sleep window is generally, we are different, but the general public is 10 p.m. And try it, look at the clock tonight, especially if you're like on the earlier side sleeper. If you notice that it's like 10:15 or 10:30 and your goal was to be asleep by 9:45 or 9:30, you might feel it.
Okay.
It's and then like the next one is like 12 o'clock, and 10 o'clock can be very early for adults, but we all have these sleep windows, so it's important to pay attention to these cues and get them in bed.
Right,
Before,
on time.
Yeah, before they get those second winds.
Because that happens to me. I've noticed
Yeah.
if I fight my fatigue,
Yeah.
I'm definitely like get my second wind and then,
Right,
yeah,
and then you're up.
it's hard to fall asleep.
You're
for sure.
up, or you're delirious, or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've kind of spoken about this already, but how would you handle sleep regressions with toddlers?
So, sleep regressions with toddlers is similar to what we were just saying. It's a lot about kind of sticking it out, and sometimes an earlier bedtime is necessary.
Okay.
So when in doubt, do the earlier bedtime. 12 months is a pretty common sleep regression, and I actually wrote about that today on my Instagram account. That is something that people look at, whether they're good sleepers. Usually they're pretty good sleepers by 12 months, and parents, it's around 12 months, and their child is waking up like 3 to 4 times a night all of a sudden, and it's so scary and sad for a parent, because you're like, oh, I had this
I've had
under,
it so
I had it
good.
under
What's
control.
going on? Yeah.
And oh, I thought all the sleep regressions were over.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen to every child, but it is a common one. And
Why is that? What happens at 12 months then?
a lot of developmental.
Okay.
A lot of they're developing like crazy since day one, but that's when a lot of things are happening. Some are starting to
walk, I guess.
some are walking. A lot of like the earlier developers are walking, or lots of crawling, different kind of rolling, figuring out like how to stand up in different spots. Just a lot of developmental. So I would say first, remember it's a phase, and it will pass. But what the most important thing to do in this time is to be extra consistent and strict on the routine.
Okay.
So if you guys have a party or a barbecue or something, and normally on a weekend you would let it push the bedtime a little bit, don't do that during this time. So this is the time to be extra strict and just to go back to the basics.
Okay.
Go back to the basics, early bedtime, and stick it out for 5 to 7 days, and then hopefully the regression passes. And if not, talk to someone like me. There's so many sleep trainers out there, and of course, when in doubt, ask your doctor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
2 questions. First is from Anastasia. My kid goes to PN now for 3 hours in the morning, and when he comes home, he falls asleep almost immediately. I guess he is pretty tired and can sleep for a few hours. As a result, he will fall asleep pretty late in the evening at around 10. Shall we cut his day nap? Also, when is the age kids don't need an afternoon nap anymore?
So if the child is napping past 4 o'clock, again, every child is different, but the norm, I would say 4 o'clock. Don't let them sleep past 4 if it's 1 nap a day, especially if bedtime is 7.
Right, that's pretty late.
Yeah, so, but again, all children are different, but if they're snoozing past that time, then I would say nicely wake them up. My trick is, when I do have to wake up my boys, I always go in with a banana,
Oh,
a little sugar and carbs,
okay.
because when you wake them up, they're not happy. So I've been in a situation where I'm like, well, I'm getting so much work done, and it's 4:15, like I could get a little bit more done, and then I don't wake them up, and they're miserable when they wake up at 4:45, because that's just not right for their body,
Right.
actually. Of course, when they're sick, that's a whole different story. I say never wake the baby. Let them sleep, because that's how they heal. But yeah, I would say don't let them sleep too late, and
Take something like a banana.
yeah, take a
Great
snack.
idea, yeah.
If you have a monster, take a snack for safety. I would say also that bedtime routine that evening, make sure it's happening. Make sure the routine is happening, especially for those days that they're sleeping, because they need that. They need to be lulled back into that sleep spot very consistently, and they need to know that there's those cues, and that means, okay,
Yes.
it's bedtime sleep now.
Okay. I
So-
think that they also asked about having to wake up to use the bathroom.
Oh,
They
no. When do they drop naps?
when do they? Oh,
When do they
okay.
drop naps?
Sorry.
But that's
It's just me being pregnant. Everything's about the bathroom. So. Okay.
So, like we said before, naps are at between 3 and 4.
Okay.
They usually drop
Right.
naps.
I think one of mine dropped his nap quite early. Like he was 2.
Yeah.
But it would take like an hour to get him to
I
nap.
know.
He'd sleep for 45 minutes, wake up miserable,
Yeah.
and then go to bed at 10. So I just
Well, in
It's like-
those cases,
Yeah.
if you are feeling like and I've been there, if you're feeling like you're spending more time trying to get them to nap rather than the nap,
yeah.
then just my go-to is always when that nap should be happening, they have to at least stay in their crib
Some
for those
quiet
60
time.
minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, 45 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
I only say 45 because if they're like freaking out and it's just not good for anybody
Right.
and they don't sound good, then fine.
Okay.
But 60 minutes, do that the first few days that you do that and they're not sleeping, they might sound like they hate your guts, but stick it out. As with anything you try new for sleeping, always stick it out for at least 5 to 7 days before you call it quits or before you try something new.
Okay. Great advice. One more question.
From Ginny, how can I deal with sudden sleep regression due to separation anxiety? My 28-month-old son was always a good sleeper, falling asleep on his own, and was able to soothe himself back to sleep if he wakes up in the middle of the night. But it sounds like she's having trouble now with some separation anxiety. 28-month-old.
So again, it's pretty hard to tell. That's very specific, or it's not. I don't know all the details in the household and what's happening during the day, but with separation anxiety, that can be a case. It can be very simple, actually, of just communicating, and you will most likely feel like a crazy person, as we do with kids these ages, anyways.
Talking to them like an adult, you mean?
Absolutely, like you. So what you have to do is just repeat a lot.
Okay.
But you're communicating.
Mhm.
So the key there is to
understand
communicate.
more than
Yeah,
you
they
give them credit
understand
for.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They need to know that mom and dad are coming back.
Okay.
And if you haven't done anything to show otherwise, then it should be okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, and we have just got a couple more questions that our viewers sent in earlier for
Okay.
you. How do sleep needs change during the toddler and preschool years?
So between toddler and preschool years, it really doesn't change that much. If anything, actually, preschoolers may need more sleep or they might need an earlier bedtime because there's new schedules.
Okay.
So they have new stimulation all over the place. They may have dropped a nap because of the preschool or because of a new class or whatever. So I would say it remains very similar. The only change would actually be maybe more sleep at night, get them down earlier. But yeah, they still really all need the same amount of sleep.
Okay. And so just how much sleep does a preschooler need, do you think?
Well,
Is there a guideline?
12 hours
Yep.
they can do
Okay.
at night. Typically, you'll see at that age it's like between anywhere from 10 to 12 hours.
Okay.
I say 12 though because that if they are napping, then you could take that in there as well.
Right.
But again, some are not napping anymore. They definitely need it. So if you can get a nap in there, great. Even if it's a half-hour nap for these
Okay.
little guys. But yeah, I would say around 12 hours.
Great. And our last question today. My child gets up too early in the morning. How can I resolve this issue?
Early bedtime. So many people are sick of hearing that. But it's so true. And it's true for us too.
Mm-hmm.
If things aren't going well the next day or throughout the night, it's you don't want them to miss their sleep window. They need to make up for that sleep debt. So I would say get that sleep at this age. Sleep begets sleep. So don't think putting your kid to bed later means they're going to wake up later. It's
Right.
the complete opposite. That is, I feel in my heart, that is an epidemic in Hong Kong. People do that thinking their kid's going to sleep later, and it's just not the case overall. It's really not the case. So I would say earlier bedtime, and then another trick.
And then you get early free time, so it's
Yeah,
a win-win.
It's a win-win. And another trick for early wake-ups is, so on the front and the bedtime, beginning of bedtime earlier, and then the next day, my rule is a strict, never go in their room before 6 a.m. So even if they're up, don't go in. They need to know that that's the time.
Mm-hmm.
In my household, it's 7 a.m. because I know that's when they sleep till. Sometimes they wake up a little bit earlier, but I need to get my coffee. I need to get their stuff ready.
Right.
So that's, instead of rushing right in, which of course it's fine if you do that, but then that's what they're going to come to expect, and you can't want to change that overnight.
Okay.
So if you let them play, my boys are old enough where they have books in their bed, so they open up the books in the morning. Sometimes they talk to each other because they do share a room, and that they can hang out for that extra 15
And they know
minutes.
not to leave their bedroom until the right time.
Yeah, so they somehow retrained them to stay in those cribs, but yeah, of course you'll have a one-off and they'll make an escape, but
Okay.
you deal with that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Emmy, for all the super
course.
valuable tips
Thanks
and
for
advice that
having
you've
me.
shared with us. Until next time, we are signing off from Little Steps, where we keep you in the know and on the go. Bye.
Bye.